welcome to Coach's Corner again for another week. Today we're going to talk about body image versus body capability. And I think in a lot of sports, we see people kind of struggling with maintaining a balance of those things. What do you think?
Absolutely. It is a very, very difficult challenge sometimes. We all have that picture of what we want to be like, what we want to look like, and then we also have what our bodies can actually do.
Yeah. So we want to actually perform well on top of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, in the strength sports, well, let me back up. I think in some sports like gymnastics and figure skating, we see a lot of eating disorders, and wrestling too, actually, because we always have to make weight. We see some disordered eating, if not full-on eating disorders. But in the strength sports, I would think that would be more rare, but I don't think that's the case, actually.
I think the higher up you go in the different levels, I think it might affect them a little bit more. The more competitive you are, the more you're going to be focused on maintaining that exact weight and trying to basically get the most out of it that you can.
Yeah. And so that can be a struggle, especially if they're going through stressful time in their life, or maybe they're trying to maintain a lower body weight than is really healthy for them.
Absolutely. There's all ends of the spectrum. Some people will eat up to try to break into that next class, and then they develop eating disorders from that as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
If you're trying to constantly eat more and more, even if you're not hungry, and you're just trying to force as much in as you can.
It's interesting. When I was in grad school, I worked on a paper that talked about, because you were in bodybuilding at the time.
Yep.
And so, that was a big debate of, is this body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and at what point is a sport versus contributing to an eating disorder? And you and I talked a lot about that. And I think what we kind of came to the conclusion of through research and discussions is that it depends on the goal and how your self-talk kind of weighs in as you're going through that weight cut or weight gain. So, in that situation, you want to yawn. I saw you swallow it. You swallowed it. You swallowed the yawn. Ew. So in that situation as a bodybuilder, what would be some thoughts that a bodybuilder who is healthily trying to cut weight, what would that look like?
And that is really hard because each person is independent. If you're trying to lose 5 pounds and you're already at 2 or 3% body fat, 5 pounds is going to be really, really tough and possibly require drastic measures. Whereas if you're on the heavier side of things and you're only trying to lose 5 pounds, it won't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Some of the biggest things are not letting yourself eat everything that's good for you. If you're trying to limit those different things, or if you limit the different food groups, you can always be put into a deficit from that.
Yeah. So basically, knowing that you have a specific goal and setting your plan to where it fits that goal and looking at it from that perspective, instead of looking in the mirror and going, wow, I'm ugly, I'm horrible, I'm fat, but being more objective of, okay, I've got some extra water weight here for my competition in 2 weeks, I need to cut this specific thing. But I think at the end of the game, at the end of the day, when the competition's done, being able to say, okay, I've met this goal, what is my next goal, and how am I going to get there? And so I think the difference is the obsessive factor and that negativity that goes along with it, which can still be a fine line.
You have two different thoughts on that, actually. The obsessive or the negative part of it can also be construed as determination or conviction towards meeting your goals and your constant perseverance towards reaching it, regardless of how you get there. And that can be where it becomes difficult too, because you're trying to reach that goal and you're trying to do it the best way you can, but a lot of people lose sight of the fact after what happens. So after you've cut that 50 pounds for that competition, what do you do from there safely?
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of the eating disorders kind of manifest afterwards. Not so much when you're doing it, but when you're done with it. You've reached that goal. Where do you go from there? How do you recover?
Yeah, and I think if we take that, and then we also take our performance. So in the strength sports, in bodybuilding, it's a little different because, well, you know what, not really, because if you're doing bodybuilding correctly, you're using heavier weights to build the muscle, to add the curves, if you're a woman, and if you're a man, to add the mass. And so you might notice strength deficits as you do a cut. But if it's getting to the point where you're not functioning well at work or in your personal life for long periods of time, that might be a good indication of, hey, this is heading towards unhealthy and it's going to affect my performance versus the way that I look. Yeah. So knowing that, and then at the end game, you know, if you're binge eating because you've been starved for so long, that could be an indication that you are handling it in an unhealthy way. So being able to understand, okay, this might be a trigger for me, and I need to make sure that somebody safely and who's knowledgeable can help me get back off of the bodybuilding or whatever weight cut plan that you were doing, or weight gain, back to a normal, healthy diet.
Commonly referred to as a recomposition.
So I think that's a big deal. Women, I think it's easier to tell when it's getting into the unsafe point because we start losing our periods. You know, our hormones change drastically when we cut too much weight. And the same thing if you gain too much weight for women. So for us, our menstrual cycle is a great indicator. Now for men, I would assume you'd still have hormones that would change, but that'd be a little more difficult to tell.
Externally, yeah, it's a lot more difficult to tell. There's not really so many different signs that your hormones are off. You have a lot more mental or emotional signs that it can be off. A lot of irritability. You can have a loss of testosterone. So if you're not getting your blood levels checked, absolutely should, regardless of whatever you're doing. You need to know so that you can maintain that healthy levels of everything you're supposed to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into that one.
No, that is definitely outside our scope in that instance. But yeah, so the big thing to take away from this, we're getting a little long, is that, you know, body image and performance, they go hand in hand, but they're also completely opposite of each other. And so it's important to have a healthy balance of what is it that I need to do to be successful in my sport versus what is the way that I want to look, and being able to, you know, put them on a scale and measure them in a healthy way.
Yep. And you can always remember, you don't have to go to the extreme to get to where you want to be. It can make it easier, it can make it harder, or they can also make it safer or more deadly, depending upon which route you go.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Set your goals, stay true to them, and work with somebody that is certified or knowledgeable about what you're trying to do.
Exactly. And second opinions are always great. So if you have someone that you think is knowledgeable, you think is good, it's always good just to reach out to somebody else that you know has the experience and certification and kind of bounce ideas back with them. Because, you know, just like everything, there's always a few different ways to look at things. And your health is important. So, you have anything else to say on that?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. We really enjoyed talking about this topic. It's pretty near and dear to our hearts because it integrates both of our works. So reach out to us if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. And as always, like and subscribe.
Bye, guys.
Bye.